Hi, where are we?
We're at Sugarbush Vineyards.
And you are?
I'm Rob Peck. I'm the owner of Sugarbush here in Prince Edward County.
And so Rob, I've come out because I was interested in what you're doing with Geotextiles. So tell me about that.
So Geotextiles are a fabric that we use to protect the vines over the winter. Locally, we've been burying the vines with dirt
For years.
For years and years, and I don't like that because it's not good for the soil, it's not good for the plants, and so we wanted to try something else out. And we were approached many years ago to do a study on these textiles.
Approached by who?
Well, it was Margaret Appleby through a MAFRA, and then she got some people involved from Brock University as well. With temperature sensors and stuff, like to really do a proper study to see if it was going to work or not.
And they do it in Quebec a bit, don't they?
They do, and that's kind of where this fabric has originated from. But we didn't have any studies on how they worked or how well they worked, how high could the tents go, how low, did they work well with snow cover, without snow cover.
So how long have you been doing it?
Since the winter of 2011, 2012.
So quite a while.
Yeah. So
and you've tried different ways of doing it?
Yeah.
Or?
So that the very first season, I didn't want to do it, and Sally convinced me, oh yeah, let's do it. And we just did panels. So we did about a dozen panels randomly throughout the field, and so there wasn't very many vines that we did. We didn't actually have temperature sensors that first winter, and the vines went through the winter fine. But what we noticed in that spring, we actually had a really cold day after the vines had been unburied, and we didn't realize it. There had been damage in the field due to cold damage. We didn't realize it until harvest time. And at harvest time, we were coming across panels that were fully loaded. And so we were like, what's going on? And we realized, because we put flagging out in the field, all the panels that were fully loaded were the panels that had geotech.
Oh, interesting.
And so the interesting thing was, because the vines had not gone underneath the dirt, they'd gone farther into winter hibernation, so they're more cold hardy. So in the springtime, after we'd unburied the rest of the vines, and we had a cold night that went below the cold hardiness of the buried plants, it did not go below the cold hardiness of the geotech plants.
Oh, how interesting.
And so that's when we thought, let's do a bigger study. And so that's when we started doing entire rows. Right.
And so what have you got covered now?
I do about 4 acres of textile.
And what varieties?
It's basically across all my varieties now. So we have Chard, Cab Franc, Gewürztraminer, Riesling, Gamay, Viognier, all underneath Geotextiles.
Wow. I would have thought maybe just the less cold hardy ones.
Well, we're doing it kind of on the edge of the field. So we did a quadrant in the field that's newer plants. Oh. Because they're a lot easier to change our trellis system for the textile.
Oh, yes.
So the really young plantings, it was easy.
Yeah.
And then the older plants, we'd done edges of the field because it's a little bit easier, because we still bury part of the field, like 3/4 of the field. It's easier if we do sides of the field or edges, like blocks.
Yeah, so, but the ones that are under the blankets, you don't bury.
No. So they're up. So we do all the springtime pruning is actually done in the fall.
Yes.
So we prune, we select the canes, we place the canes, and then we put the fabric over. Yeah. And so in the springtime, those rows, we have to do a little bit of cane pulling out of the top end of the trellis. Yeah. But otherwise, we take the fabric off, those rows are ready to go.
Has there been much other interest in the county in this?
There's a number of vineyards that have started doing it. I believe Trail Estate did their entire field this past winter. Wow. They have a really wet field, so I can see why they went that way.
And I guess my last question is, how can you decide when to take the blankets off?
We wait, usually it's mid-April when we're taking the blankets off. But the one study we did, the one spring, was early removal, mid-removal, late removal. Oh. It doesn't really make a big difference.
Okay. So have you de-hilled everything else before,
we usually de-hill
first
before we've taken the fabric off.
Interesting.
And most of that is just so that it's a little bit easier to walk through the tied down portion to pull canes out of the trellis to start
Right.
doing work in that part of the field.
Oh, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that you've done it and brave to try.
Well, it's one of those things where we were struggling with damage every year in the field of the berry
Yeah.
plants, because the berry plants, we're throwing earth on top of them. They're getting bent
Yeah.
really low. So there is some some damage that we do on those plants every year that
Yeah.
we're trying to avoid. And what we've noticed with the textile rows, the fruit set is uniform.
Yeah.
So the buds all break at the same time. Whereas on berried plants, because the cane's been underneath the dirt, maybe a little wet, the bud break on the cane is not as uniform.
So if you were to plant new rows, would you just lower the trellises to start with? And
So we have a pretty low trellis to begin with, but we're just changing where some of the wire placements are. So that for us, it's not that big of a deal to move our trellis to set up for geotech.
Yeah.
The big thing is our older plants, they're just so old, it's hard to change a little bit harder to change the training system on them.
And so when do you put the blankets out?
It's the very last thing we do. We actually do it after we've buried the rest of the field.
Oh, okay.
It's very fast. We have a roller, a hydraulic roller to roll and unroll the fabric. We want to mechanize a little bit more to make it a little bit faster.
Yeah.
But we can do with 4 people, we can do an acre a day.
And you can reuse the textiles?
We can, yeah. So as long as you're careful with it, so we have to make sure there are no grape stakes and things like that in the rows that could poke holes in the textile.
And UV doesn't seem to damage them, or?
No, we're not sure how many years we can go. Our oldest fabric right now is about 5 years old, and it's still in good shape.
Yeah.
So we'll see, but we figure 7 or 8 years.
That's excellent.
So,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.